You just think, just one of the wheel bolts of this car has got more character than the car in front of us. Hello guys, welcome back to Car Obsession and welcome once more to a throwback review. This is the series in which I review cars from yesteryear. This time around, it's a car that is around the same age as me, but I'm sure you'll agree is in better condition. Yes, it is a 1992 Audi A80.
The Audi A80 can trace its roots all the way back to the swinging 60s, in which it was used as a variant for the very stylish F103. It wasn't until 1972 that Audi produced the 80 as a standalone model. The 80 was the predecessor to the A4 and was produced in 4 generations: B1, B2, B3 and B4. It's the B4 which is featured in this video. Compared to the outgoing B3, the B4 offered a longer wheelbase, redesigned fuel tank, a larger boot, redesigned body, 15-inch alloys, a higher quality interior and a redesigned rear axle that allowed for folding rear seats. These are important milestones, but arguably the most important is the fact that this is the first Audi model to be given the RS treatment. Yes, the 80 served as the platform as the legendary RS2, which of course featured a 5-pot under the bonnet.
So this retro motor, under the bonnet you have a 2-litre petrol which offers 115 horsepower. This power is fed to the front wheels via a 4-speed automatic. You could also have a 5-speed manual, and there was quite a myriad of different engine choices. You had a 1.6 litre 4-cylinder, you also had a 2.2 litre 5-cylinder, a 2.6 V8 and a 2.8 V8, all of which were petrol. Now if you wanted a diesel, you could have one that was a 1.9, no, not a PD, but you could have this as a 1.9 diesel if you so preferred. Now, as we would expect of a car of this age and this power, the power delivery isn't immediate, but this isn't built for speed, is it? It's built to be a rival to a BMW or a Mercedes. It's all about having that compact executive, you know what I mean? It's all about having that extra bit of refinement. Now, this particular trim level is quite a basic one. For example, look at this, look. Do you remember these kids? Oh, I've got keep fit windows, which actually operate quite nicely. Quite nice and smooth. Much like how the car feels, and hopefully you would have seen from the B-roll that this car is nigh on pristine. It's been kept very, very well. And the word time warp is a bit overused in older cars, but this really is a time warp. It feels like I've stepped back into time. The engine, it makes quite a good noise. It's got a nice bit of determination about it. Yes, you're not going to make a lot of fast progress in this car, but it's smooth. It's quite a silky car. Now, these are my first impressions. The owner, Ben, is sat to my left-hand side. He's very kindly let me take this out for this video, and I'm very grateful. And yeah, he's owned the car since September. At the time of filming, we're in December 2023, and this car is just, it's beautifully retro. I really do like it. It's just got so much more character than your average bog standard new car. This had been in storage for around 13 years, and you can certainly see that it's paid dividends, because what we have is a car that probably could enter into concourse and arguably would get a decent score. Now, yes, as I've touched upon, this is somewhat basic. So if you're looking for a car that is flush with features that won't be found here, but as Ben said to me, the owner, as he said to me off camera, there's less to go wrong. There's very little in the way of electronic trickery in here. As I've mentioned, you've got keep fit windows. It's got the original stereo, and that's pretty much it. We haven't got air conditioning, have we?
No.
We've got ABS though,
Yeah.
so that's something. 4-speed automatic, as I've mentioned. You do actually have a sport button, so let's give that a go. It lights up green. Oh, okay. That's actually quite punchy. That was more punchy than I was expecting. Quite sprightly. Quite fizzy. I love how simplistic this car is, and that's not by any means an insult. It's a good thing. The steering wheel is not a complete maze of buttons and just too much to look at. You've got the 4 Audi rings, and that's it. I do believe, no, this hasn't got an airbag, has it? No, so airbag was an optional extra. God bless you 90s. Who cares about the safety? Airbag, who needs airbags? So yes, like I say, this car is back to basics, but that's great because it's just you and the car. I do quite enjoy the sport mode. It does offer more performance than I was expecting. Of course, with this being an older car, you do need to be a little bit careful with the brakes because they're not going to be as sharp as a modern day vehicle, but they're not bad. I have to say, the ride is fantastic. It's gliding over these bumps. It's a nice ride, but there's still enough firmness behind the suppleness to give you some confidence when you push on in a corner. This isn't a handling machine by any means, but it's typically Audi. It's comfortable enough, but it's still firm enough to make it an enjoyable driving experience. The steering, given the car's age, is quite responsive. A little bit of roll, as you would expect. It's built primarily for comfort. But it's a pleasant car to drive, and although this isn't Ben's daily driver, in fact, believe it or not, that's an MX-5, yes, you could quite happily drive this day to day, and this could just munch up motorway miles with ease. Okay, you've only got 115 horsepower. For what it's worth, this 2-litre engine was also available with just 90 horsepower, which me and Ben agreed on off camera, that 90 horsepower in this car just wouldn't be enough. I don't quite understand why anyone would choose that, not unless they're thinking about their purse strings. So if you are going to go for the 2-litre, you have to go for this, I'd say. As I've mentioned, other engines were made available, and you could also have this as a 5-speed manual, and you could also have this as Quattro as well, if you wanted an extra bit of reassurance for those colder, wetter, icier months. So as Ben said to me off camera, when you meet a hill, you do need to kick down on the accelerator, because the car does struggle a little bit, but once you wind it up, it's okay. Right, just take it out of sport and kind of cruise a bit, because this what I believe this car is made for, just cruising. This car is completely standard. Ben is confident that it's never had a respray, and it was stored for 13 years. Since being taken out of storage, it's had a new battery, obviously, tyres have been replaced, ignition coils have been replaced, and that's about it, if I'm not mistaken. All the belts, yes. So the timing belt, of course, and the auxiliary drive belts have been replaced.
Discs and pads.
Yes, pads and discs as well. It feels like quite a tight car. This car is over 30 years old. Oh my word, that makes me feel a bit old. Because, okay, it's a car from the 90s, but does this car feel like it's 3 decades old? Honestly, I don't think so. Okay, the buttons do look a bit 80s, but this is essentially a reworked version of the 3rd generation Audi AT. This has a longer wheelbase, therefore you get more space inside, and the few other bits I would have touched upon in the voiceover before this driving segment. But it's just got everything you really need. Speedometer, temperature gauge. Actually, the car's running a bit hot. Just to make you aware.
No, it does.
It does run hot. Fine.
It's a known issue.
Fine. Okay.
It needs a new radiator.
I just looked at the temperature gauge. Thought, yeah, it's running a bit hot, but it's a fairly cold day, so it should be okay. This car it's timeless, and it's really set the blueprint, the platform for the Audi A4 that we know from today. There we go. There's a kick down. I see what you mean. The kick down. You really have to bury your foot to find it. You go, no, that's not it. That's not it. Ah, there we go. Got it. So behind slow moving traffic, probably a cyclist or a tractor, given this kind of area. These seats are really comfortable as well, and they also feel pretty supportive. You get a sense that you could drive this for a longer journey and not really feel any kind of pain or cramp towards the end of it. Do you do quite a lot of long journeys in this?
Yeah, so to get to my parents from where I live, it's about 100 miles.
Okay.
So I regularly do 100-mile journeys, and it's very comfortable.
Yeah, I can imagine. Is there any foibles or any strange quirks this car has?
Can't think of any. Really.
No, well, that's a good
it's
thing.
Fairly basic.
Yeah.
I like it for its basic simplicity and
Yeah.
no window regulators to go wrong.
No.
Manual sunroof.
Yep.
That is watertight.
Yeah. That's always a bonus.
Yeah, the original speakers are really good on the radio.
That's good.
Yeah.
And you bought this car because your dad had one many years ago as a company car. Is that right?
Yes, my dad had one in the late 80s. He had the B3.
Yeah.
In the late 80s. The same colour as this one, Tornado Red, I believe is the colour.
Oh, okay.
So I've known about it for years, and he always raved about that car as to how much he loved it and the refinement and how comfortable it was, and it's kind of what made me want to buy one.
Are there anything to look out for? So if someone's watching this and wants to buy one of these, is there anything they should look out for, anything they should avoid?
You don't need to worry too much about rust, because all the frames and the chassis were galvanised, so rust is not too much of an issue. To be honest, it's mostly standard stuff like belts, water pumps, just standard sort of maintenance type items. There's not really any major known issues with the car. I think because of its age, you just need to watch to replace sort of standard things. Really.
Yeah, kind of consumable items, I suppose, so to speak.
I think the engines are fairly bulletproof. I mean, it's quite a large capacity for quite a small horsepower, so it's quite an under-stressed engine.
Yeah.
It's a belt-fed engine, belt-driven engine. Sorry. Yeah, there's not a lot to go wrong, really.
And going back to what you were saying about the rust. If I'm not mistaken, from factory, Audi had a 10-year guarantee for corrosion, didn't they? Because of the galvanised steel body.
Yeah.
And even though this is a car that's 30 years old, there's very minimal in the way of rust on this car. It's a really lovely example, and I know you said of camera they're not that desirable, but I don't know why, because there's a lovely retroness about a car like this. Yes, it isn't fast, but what it lacks in speed, it makes up for in character, just the comfort, the refinement. And as well as the Audi 80, you also had the Audi 90, didn't you? Which was essentially a more, would it be fair to say, a more luxurious version of this?
So, the 90 was sort of the premium version, or like almost the premium trim level
of
the 80 with lots of the options.
Because the 80, so this is the saloon version, of course, but you could also have this as a coupe and a cabriolet,
yes,
if I'm not mistaken. Come to think of it, didn't Princess Diana have an Audi 80?
She did, yes.
Yeah.
That's why the Audi 80 cabriolets are a lot more popular than the saloons. You see a lot more cabriolets around, actually. So whether that is because of the Diana connection, I don't know. But I've always been a saloon guy. Saloons are a dying breed, and I want to keep them going.
Yes,
so
they
I
are.
love saloons.
What made you want to buy an older car as opposed to perhaps just buying, let's say, an older A4, for example?
I always like to buy cars that are slightly different. I don't like buying like just a Golf or something that everyone has. Or when I look to buy a car, I always try and look to buy something a little bit different.
Yeah.
And I've always loved classic cars, and I've always been a bit scared to go into the classic car world. So I thought I would try by getting something that's sort of on the verge of a classic but still modern enough. Like I wanted the car to have ABS.
Yeah.
I'm a bit scared to drive a car without ABS these days, and I wanted it to be not an absolute like just rust bucket.
No, of course.
Something that was not too susceptible to that, and that really limits your options when you're looking at older cars.
Yeah.
Especially with the rust situation. Any old BMW of this age suffers from rust quite badly. It's been very well looked after. This not so much with this one, and because the Audis were never as popular as the BMWs, there aren't as many around. So I like to share the car with people, and I often get people coming up to me and saying that they had one as a company car, or their dad had one, or...
Well, as it so happened, before we jumped into the car, you had a dog walker come up to you and said that he used to own one when he was in the forces, and it brought back some nice memories for him, and that's fantastic. The cars like this, they have stories, they have nostalgia, and it's absolutely fantastic. And it feels, even after all this time, it feels solid. It feels like a properly put together car, much like my Audi A6 did. You get a sense they were built at a time where quality was really important. Build quality on some newer cars isn't quite the same as what it was, and everything in here just feels solid. Feels really well put together.
Yeah, it's the renowned German build quality.
Yes.
Cars. Really, I think Mercedes were the same at the time, and this era of car, they really put an emphasis on quality. Whereas going into towards the 2000s, 2010s, the companies were trying to penny pinch and cut back on the quality a lot. So that's one of the reasons I like this car, because it's got the classic sort of forever talked about German build quality of the era.
So, for a good example of one of these, what kind of are you looking at price-wise?
Well, there are so few about, to be honest.
It's difficult to say.
You really sort of have to buy on condition and mileage.
Yeah.
I'm not sure there's a set sort of rule for the amount you pay. I mean, I paid £3,000 for this car, which I felt like was a fairly good price.
I'd say so.
Cars of this mileage maybe go for between 3 and 5, depending on condition.
Yeah.
But like if you're looking to buy one, I mean, on Auto Trader they might have maybe 1 or 2 at a time. So you really, if there's a particular spec you want, you're going to have to bide your time and just look at them as they come up. Really, just find one that has a good history and go and inspect it before you buy it.
Yeah.
Give it a test drive, of course, as well.
I have to say, it's soaking up the bumps really well. On that little S-bend, as I call it, there's some really nasty ruts in the road, and it just took it in its stride.
Yeah, so I think it's got 15-inch wheels, I believe. So I think, and quite chunky sidewalls. So
yeah.
I think that helps with the ride.
Oh, definitely, definitely.
I think the wheels were all 15 inches, but they came in different styles. There was a more sporty, I think, sort of like 5 or 6 spoke design.
Yeah.
The wheels on this car are the supposedly aerodynamic designed wheels, so they almost look like they've got hubcaps on, as if they're steel wheels.
Yeah.
They are alloys, but they're designed to be a bit more aero efficient to get better fuel economy, essentially.
You just think, just one of the wheel bolts of this car has got more character than the car in front of us. It's an electrified Vauxhall Mocha. Don't get me wrong, that car's actually it's quite a good looking car, but it just hasn't got the same charm, charisma and character as a car like this. And this is why I'm finding myself being drawn more towards older cars than new cars, because old cars, they have a soul, they really do. Whereas new cars, they just lack that. Yeah, this car, it feels like it's got a character, a personality to it. And for me, that's kind of what motoring's all about. Cars need to have a bit of character to them, and this car does that. As Ben said, it might not be the most desirable car going, but it's got something about it, something that's kind of difficult to put your finger on. I like it, I really do. I mean, a V6 one would be nice, but it would be more costly to insure, tax, and of course run. So I think that pretty much do us. Ben, thank you very much for your time and of course allowing me to drive your simply wonderful Audi 80. It's been quite the experience, definitely in a good way. It's nice just to step back in time.
It's nice to share this car with people, so I'm glad you've really enjoyed it.
No, I genuinely have. I'm not just saying that because you sat in the driver's seat. It's been a really nice experience. It's it's not blessed with power, but it doesn't need to be. So it's just, there we go, handbrake on. Oh, nice firm feeling handbrake. It's just been a really nice experience, and I really hope you guys have enjoyed the video. A big thank you to Ben for giving me his time and of course temporarily his car. If you ever enjoyed it, guys, be sure to like, comment and subscribe. If you own an Audi 80, or perhaps your dad or your mother did, or your uncle, whoever, if you've got any stories to share, please do so. I'd love to get a conversation started. And YouTube is all about being a community, isn't it? I know it sounds a bit soppy, but you know what I mean. So let's get some good conversation started. Share your experiences, good and maybe some bad ones as well. The rain's starting to fall down, so yes, I think it's time for us to end. Like I say, if you have enjoyed it, like, comment and subscribe. If you are subscribed, don't forget to click the bell icon so you get notified every time I make a video. But until the next time, guys, be sure to keep up the car obsession.